Good evening, everybody. The North Ridgeville City Council meeting is now in session. Today is Monday, May 1st, 2023. If you could please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, we come together again and thank you for the wonderful community in which we live and for the opportunity to represent it as our city council. We ask you to give us and all elected officials the wisdom to make good decisions and to govern with integrity and justice. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody. Clerk, please call the roll.
Swink.
Here.
Boos. Here. Abens.
Here.
Winkle.
Here.
Awig.
Yeah.
DeVries. Here. Jacobs.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Law Director.
Here.
Engineer.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Clerk of Council. Here. And Mayor. Did I get the Mayor?
You got the mayor.
Okay, got the Mayor.
I could say I'm here
He's here.
again.
All right, feel it.
I'm still here.
Only one vote, still only one vote.
All right, tonight under the approval of minutes, we have the City Council meeting minutes dated April 17th, 2023. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, those minutes are approved as originally submitted. And please note that council has also received the Planning Commission meeting minutes dated April 11th, 2023, the Parks and Recreation minutes dated March 22nd, 2023, as well as the Parks and Recreation work session minutes dated March 22nd, 2023. Next up is our lobby session. In a moment, I will open the lobby. As a reminder, in the interest of time, the lobby session is not meant to be an interactive question and answer session, but it is an opportunity for the public to address both City Council as well as the City Administration. Audience members wishing to speak this evening, we do ask that you speak from the podium. You will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak regarding any matter related to the general affairs of the city or the business of City Council. We do ask that you state your name and address for the record as well. So at this time, the lobby session is open. Is there anybody who wishes to address council this evening? Again, if you could, state your name and address.
I'm at 37445 Tail Feather Drive in North Ridgeville, and I am here about the low-speed vehicles. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I had contacted the Sheffield Village Police Department to ask them about their crashes with golf carts. And while I couldn't get any statistics that I could print out from them, the lady on the phone had told me, the police officer had told me that she could not recall any crashes involving any golf carts in Sheffield Village. I also had printed out some more crash statistics for the state of Ohio, which I had given to Ms. Swank. So I'd like for you guys to review those. And from what I could gather, there was no accidents at all in Sheffield Village, and there was really nothing in Vermillion either. So moving forward, that's where I'm at with the golf carts, and I'd like to get a vote on it next week, or next 2 weeks. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Is there anybody else with us this evening that would like to address council or the administration? Okay, hearing none, the lobby session is now closed. We will move on to administrator's report. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. There are several items on the agenda this evening, and based on any questions that may come up, we may or may not ask for the emergency on them. But one in particular is T49, and it's regard to pole signs. We have had discussions at the Planning Commission level on that, and there is in the new ordinance that'll be coming your way, those will be banned from the city moving forward. And that we figured, since Planning Commission's already had lengthy discussions about that, there was no reason to wait, and said we'd put a moratorium in place until that ordinance basically is brought before you, discussed, and ultimately passed. And so in the interim, I'm asking for the moratorium on those. And then, we have a lot of financial ordinances coming through. Those will also require the emergency clause. But moving on to more fun things. tomorrow is another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here in council chambers at 8:30 to 9:30. And then tomorrow is also Election Day. And coming up on Saturday, May 6th, it is time for the Fishing Derby. Registration is now available on the Park and Recreation's website. You do need to register. It is a free event, but you do need to register. Did I say you need to register? Because sometimes that is confusing. They do collect donations of $5 the day of the event to benefit the aluminum cans for burned children, if you're interested in taking part in that. But it is a sponsored event by the Park and Recreation Department and also the North Ridgeville Fire Department. And at this point in time, I move to go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employee or official.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Swank to go into an executive session for the reasons stated by the mayor. Clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Boos,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we will adjourn into executive session.
Not too long, 15 minutes maybe? It's hard to say.
All right, thank you for your patience, folks. We are now back in regular session. Mr. Mayor, please continue with your report.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Engineer.
Thank you, Council President. This past Saturday, Avon Lake Regional Water was out on Lorraine Road doing some repairs to their transmission water main, and in order to do that, we had to greatly reduce the water pressure in that area, being from 480 to the Turnpike. This work happened Saturday morning, which affected many of those businesses. The pressure ended up being lower than we had anticipated, and I just want to thank all of those businesses for working with us through that situation. Unfortunately, Avon Lake Regional Water wasn't able to finish their work, and we will have to go through this process yet again. We are working with them to determine if there's a more appropriate time to minimize the disruption. Perhaps some evening work might be in store for the rest of that work. Recent rain has slowed down some of our current projects on Barris Road. They still need to finish up some concrete work, signage, and striping. Hopefully, they'll get to that at the end of this week, and we can open up the intersection by next week. Additionally, Center Ridge Road repaving project down on the west side has slowed down because of the rain. I would ask everyone to take extra caution. I just happened to be riding down there myself during the rain this afternoon, and that plain surface is prone to skidding, so I would ask everybody to take a little extra time and be a little more cautious. Lastly, I wanted to let all our property owners know that who have backflow devices on file with the engineering department, you will be receiving a letter from the engineering department notifying you that all backflow devices need to be tested by a qualified person certified to conduct these tests. Proof of the inspections are due to the engineering office by June 15th. As a reminder, anyone with an irrigation system will have a backflow device, as well as many of our commercial businesses. If you have any questions regarding the backflow program, feel free to call our office. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Ms. Finance Director?
Thank you, Council President. As the mayor indicated earlier, there are three pieces of legislation before council. Three pieces of legislation before council tonight. T50 is a resolution authorizing fund transfers. T51 is a resolution authorizing the execution of then and now certificates. And T52 is an ordinance amending annual appropriations. I'd like to ask council to consider adopting this legislation tonight with the emergency clause added to allow the finance department the resources necessary to meet our financial obligations. That's it. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Please note, council is also in receipt of the March 2023 EPA and Water Distribution Report, the March 2023 Mayor's Court Report, as well as the March 2023 Parks and Recreation Director's Report. We do have a council committee report on tonight's agenda. Clerk, if you could please read the Safety Committee report.
Safety Committee report dated April 17, 2023. The committee reviewed and considered T4 2023. The committee made a motion to send T4 2023 back to City Council to consider and to amend the following changes discussed. Added speedometer to the equipment list. Added low-speed vehicle or underspeed vehicle means a vehicle that is four-wheeled whose speed attainable is 1 mile is more than 20 miles per hour and not more than 25 miles per hour on a paved surface, whose gross vehicle weighting rate is not more than 3,000 pounds. All LSVs must meet all U.S. federal safety standards and state and local laws. Added under 478.05B, displaying a reflective triangular shaped sticker decal issued by the inspecting authority.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swing.
move to accept the Safety Committee report dated April 17th, 2023.
I'll second it.
It was moved by Swink and seconded by Awig to accept the Safety Committee report. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swing.
I'd like to move to suspend the bylaws and bring T4 2023 to be read under the second readings this evening.
Second.
Motion was made by Swink and seconded by Awig to dispense with the bylaws and to add T4 to tonight's agenda under second readings. Clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Luce,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
The motion carries and will be placed under second readings.
All right, there's no correspondence or old business on tonight's agenda. Under new business, we have a liquor transfer permit request. Clerk, if you could please read that request.
A request from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for transfer of permit request from New Chat Ventures Incorporated DBA Bullfrog Sports Cafe at 33137 Center Ridge Road to Hungry Hound Investments LLC DBA Bullfrog Sports Cafe at 33137 Center Ridge Road and patio.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Winkle.
I move to not request a hearing, so this could be sent to the state for final disposition by May 17th.
The motion was made by Winkle and seconded by Booth to not request a hearing in order to send the permit request to the state for final disposition. Are there any comments? All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. With no additional new business being brought forth this evening, we will move on to recess.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Booth?
move to dispense with recess.
Second.
It was moved by Booth and seconded by Winkle to dispense with recess. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. We will dispense with recess and move right along to first readings. T41, clerk.
T47-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 854 peddlers, canvassers, and solicitors.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Just so you know, we took a look at this ordinance, and it was something that had been applied a little bit differently in the past. We used to have a fee of $50 for solicitor permits, and they were registering companies at that level. And then a company would bring in like 15 people and still get in under that, $50 registration. That was the first thing that we changed, just logistically inside the office. There was a review of that language, and it said registrant, which would be each person. So that also then caused us to look at the rest of the ordinance. And I think what we've done here, and I don't know if anybody has any questions, and this is, I mentioned earlier in my report, the idea of the emergency clause being a possibility. What we put in place here was more protection for the residents. We have these solicitors that go around our city, and now in the new ordinance, we're requiring a background check for people. We felt it was important and necessary to do that. People are knocking on doors, walking around neighborhoods, interacting with our residents, and under our current system, we really don't know anything about these people, other than we have their driver's license. So we looked at some of our surrounding cities and found some language that we've added, and that's where all this new T47 comes from, that ordinance that's in there. Now, I don't know how thoroughly you looked at it, but this is the time of year where people start to come in and ask for these permits. So if you were okay with moving forward, then I would ask you to move forward. If you need more time, we could wait until the next meeting, but I'd like to get this in place as soon as possible so we have our rules established before too many people come and ask for those permits.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr.
through
DeVries.
the chair to the mayor, who would be facilitating the background checks?
They have to get their background check on their own, and there are organizations that do that, and then they would have to supply us with that information once it was completed.
Very good, thank you.
Mr.
And
President,
I would add that the legislation does state that background check has to be done within 30 days of applying for the permit, so it can't be, a year old or anything like that. Yes, Mrs. Swing?
if I could, to the mayor, so this would cover people who come to your door and say, let me see your gas bill, let me see your electric bill.
All those kinds of people, yes.
People playing the violins in Giant Eagles parking lots and, does that include those? Peddlers?
I don't know if that would fall under just vagrant or or peddler, solicitor. I mean, they are soliciting people for money. I'm not sure if they would fall in that category, but we get people selling or trying to sell people on services like pest control, lawn care, energy suppliers, all those kind. And so we get quite a bit. I mean, we have a large residential population, so it attracts them to this area. I think, putting some protections in place makes a lot of sense.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Abens?
question I would have as well is, would this apply to canvassers as well?
It would.
So that would mean political candidates or those folks who are pitching their particular religious views.
By law, candidates are not subjected to this.
Okay, because the definition of canvasser could fit a political candidate.
It could, but I believe they're exempt under a different provision outside of this ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swain?
that leads me to the next question. What about like Jehovah Witnesses? Would this cover those? Would they have to, or would that fall under religion?
I believe that there's a religious exemption as well.
Okay.
Kind of going along with Mr. Abens' question, would it pertain to any volunteers of of candidates for campaigns? If they're not the actual candidate themselves, but just volunteering on behalf of?
It's been a while since I read that section, so I'm not sure if it applies to volunteers or not. I believe that I believe political activity is exempt.
Okay.
I believe, but don't hold me to that.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Abens?
again, this could apply to a little Girl Scout coming to our door, I believe.
I believe it could.
Hard for them to sell cookies otherwise.
Our current ordinance would as well. But remember, actually, you'd have to look at the language. I don't remember if there's an exemption for,
When I read it, I
Girl
didn't
Scouts
see
or-
anything like that. In fact, it
or
did
for
mention
minors.
something of that nature.
but, most of our complaints come, the reason why we even look at this ordinance is because of complaints. The last time it was an energy supplier that was well, they ran into some trouble and we wound up having to revoke their permit because of some interactions that they had with residents, that the residents were upset as to what that person told them. And it turned out, they were telling them false information.
I can
So-
see where this is important to protect against scammers.
Right.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swain?
in section B, it states, peddler means any person traveling by either foot, automobile, truck, or any type of conveyance from place to place, door to door. What about the food trucks that we have in like Meadow Lakes or in the developments? Would those food trucks fall under that?
No, they'd fall under, is similar to the mobile frozen dessert sales that's in the next ordinance. Those are, you go to them,
Right.
like an ice cream truck.
Mhm.
You're going to the ice cream truck. They're, these people under the peddlers, canvassers, and solicitors, they're coming to your door, so.
You're talking like Omaha Steaks, for example. Like
You're
those.
trapped with this, T-47 people. You're trapped. You can't escape them unless you shut the door in their face. With an ice cream truck or a mobile food truck,
Vendor.
you're searching them out. They're in the neighborhood. You go there on purpose. It's not. It's a different situation.
Thank you.
there any additional questions or comments? I will say that I certainly, agree with the background check part of it. There's a list of offenses that would prohibit somebody from obtaining a permit and being allowed to go door to door. So for the safety of the residents of the city, that certainly makes sense. However, I'm not sure that would make sense to apply to children selling candy for their,
Baseball
to raise school for their, money for their schools or baseball teams or Girl Scouts or whatever the case may be. But with no additional comments or questions, we will move on to T48.
T48-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 856 Mobile Frozen Dessert Sales.
T49.
T49-2023, an ordinance imposing a moratorium on the granting of permits and on the acceptance of applications for permits for freeway-oriented signs, off-premise advertising signs, and pole signs as defined in Chapter 1286, Signs of North Ridgeville Codified Ordinances for a period not to exceed 180 days from the effective date of this ordinance, in order to allow the Planning Commission and City Council to consider possible changes to the city's sign regulations.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
move to dispense with the second and third readings for T49.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Winkle to dispense with the second and third readings for T49. Are there any comments or questions at this time?
Mr. President,
Yes,
as
Mr.
I
Mayor.
mentioned earlier, Planning Commission has been reviewing changes to the sign code that we put in front of them a couple of meetings ago for them. It'll be making its way to council, and so far in that change, these types of signs will be prohibited in the future. So it just makes sense at this point to put this moratorium in place until that sign code comes to council and gets reviewed. And whether we keep them or not, we'll make that decision with you. But in the meantime, let's put this moratorium in place until we determine that at the council level.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any additional comments or questions? Again, the motion was made by the mayor and seconded by Winkle to dispense with the second and third readings for T49. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Winkle.
move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, move the emergency clause for the reasons stated by the mayor.
Second.
It was moved by Winkle and seconded by Swank to add the emergency clause to T49 for the reasons stated by the mayor. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by Winkle and seconded by Swank to adopt T49 with the emergency clause in place. Do we have any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swank,
Yes.
Boos,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6066-2023.
T50.
T50-2023, a resolution authorizing fund transfers.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to dispense with the second, third reading?
Second.
The motion was made by DeVries and seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T50. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion to add the emergency clause for the reasons stated earlier by the Director of Finance?
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to add the emergency clause to T50 for the reasons stated earlier in the meeting by the Director of Finance. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to adopt T50 with the emergency clause in place. Are there any comments or questions at this time? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swank,
Yes.
Boos,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes resolution number 1594-2023.
T51.
T51-2023, a resolution authorizing the execution of then and now certificates by the city fiscal officer and the payment of amounts due for various purchase orders.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Boost to dispense with the second and third readings for T51. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to adopt.
Second.
I'd like to add the motion for the emergency clause, just to make sure that we meet our financial obligations in a timely manner as stated by the Director of Finance.
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Boost to add the emergency clause to T51 in order to meet the city's financial obligations. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Boost to adopt T51 with the emergency clause in place. At this time, are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Boost,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes resolution number 1595-2023.
T52.
T52-2023, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6031-2022 of the city of North Ridgeville, Ohio, providing appropriations for the period commencing January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
The motion was made by DeVries and seconded by Awig to dispense with the second and third readings for T52. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion to add the emergency clause for the reasons stated by the Director of Finance.
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Awig to add the emergency clause to T52 for the reasons stated earlier in the meeting by the Director of Finance. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Awig to adopt T52 with the emergency clause in place. At this time, are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Boost,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6067-2023.
T53.
T53-2023, an ordinance amending Exhibit A of ordinance number 6065-2023 by changing the position of fire secretary/dispatcher to administrative assistant.
Mr. President,
Yes.
move
Mr.
to
Mayor.
dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Swink to dispense with the second and third readings for T53. Are there any comments or questions at this time?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
the person currently holding the position of fire secretary dispatcher is going to be retiring in the not-too-distant future. The term dispatcher in the title is misleading because that's what they used to do when we used to dispatch ourselves. So what we wanted to do is change the title, and this is just simply a title change, to administrative assistant to better reflect the position as it would be moving forward. And so we could then post for the position, interview people, and ultimately hire somebody to take that spot. That's as simple as it is.
All right. Any additional comments or questions? Again, the motion was made by the mayor and seconded by Swink to dispense with the second and third readings for T53. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, move to add the emergency clause so that way we can start to post and hire the position.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Swink to add the emergency clause to T53 for the reasons stated by the mayor. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by the mayor and seconded by Swink to adopt T53 with the emergency clause in place. Are there any comments or questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Boost,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6068-2023.
Under second readings, T4.
T4 dash 2023, an ordinance creating NRCO Chapter 478, regulating the operation of low-speed and underspeed vehicles.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swain?
I move to amend and substitute T4 2023 with the amended version that was given to City Council before the meeting this evening.
Second?
It was moved by Swank and seconded by Awig to amend T4 with the substitute version before you this evening. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. All right, T4 has been amended. There are no third readings this evening. As for meeting announcements, the next regular city council meeting will be held on Monday, May 15th, 2023, here in city council chambers. The time for the meeting, as normal, will be 7 p.m. Just prior to the next council meeting, there will be a committee of the whole meeting on that same date, May 15th, at 6 p.m. here in council chambers, and that will be a presentation from Guide Studios regarding the city signage program. Do any of the council members or members of the administration have any final comments this evening?
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Booth?
just a reminder on the city's Memorial Day Parade and ceremony. People are beginning to contact me and register for the parade. If you want a unit in the parade, you can go to the city's website, look at Memorial Day, and there'll be a link there that will eventually take you to the Lions Club of North Ridgeville website where you can register your unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Any additional questions or, comments? All right, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.